Hey, greetings, Kalask. Welcome.
Correct, right, yes. Welcome as well. We're aware there are a number of virtuals currently, but there are certain interest communicating with either us or cancer. Let's start with addressing the elephant or Brontosaurus or perhaps the virus in the room, right? Your current corona infection. Now, what we say previously, considering an incoming world wars up on the plate here, remember, we are necessarily seeing tanks rolling or airplanes flying, we are seeing energy moving, and what you're currently experiencing with your infectious ideas is also releasing some form of energy in the direction coming from the eastwards and spreading out from there on. So therefore, this to large degree is also certain energetic release, which does not mean that this will avert any further warlike scenarios. However, it might take some heat off as you release the energy this manner. However, you, or rather the planet, is releasing energy. This is one version of releasing energy, but there are still a lot more, and it's very unlikely the virus alone will release all of it, unless the vast majority of your population will get infected. Currently not very likely, but it's possible. Now, the main point is there needs to be energetic release, and that's just taking the lid off. However, more specific, this virus is not what you consider natural, so your official version is not quite correct. There's been an idea that it was an attack on China and Iran from Western powers in the sense that it was engineered to attack those countries, particularly with biological warfare. This isn't correct either. The truth lies somewhere else. The idea that this virus was indeed engineered as a weapon of war, or in the very region it got released on, so the release itself was an accident from the human error's marking perspective, but the engineering of the virus was not an accident. It didn't just happen by chance, it was engineered intentionally, but it was not intentionally released in terms of infecting humans in the area where it occurred first. Now, this is the more detailed version of what happened. Now, from a larger scheme, the idea obviously is everything happens for a reason, everything is connected, just as one group of people that does something to the rest of your plan. Where maybe you will have those concepts you're considering conspiracy theories, right? And yes, most of them are based in the reality to some degree. However, there is still one group of people on Earth that's all powerful, and very often what happens is still up to higher powers, they're calling such, and those peoples that are what you're considering conspiring in one part of your plan or another one, as there are numerous groups of your plan that are conspiring against each other, right? And all of those really are still operating under the same confinements of the current third, fourth dimensional reality you all live under. So there are certain forces that are more powerful in groups that does one thing or the other. So when something like this happens, it happens for a reason, even if some person decides to do this. In other words, if someone gets shot, right, then there's still a person pulling the trigger to shoot the other person, but the other person also was willing to die on something that otherwise wouldn't happen. The same applies collectively. So in this case, the idea simply being there's also a energetic release. Your players also do some degree fighting back with your changes of certain environmental conditions, and yes, this also of course includes a widespread of such a scenario. Now, does it mean your entire species will go extinct? Very, very unlikely. Does it mean you're going to have more people? Yes, also very, very likely. Now, we're saying or sharing anything to panic you or to calm you down. We're just sharing information. We're aware your speech is very hectic and confused anyway, but we're also aware that some individuals voice some concern about this, or we would think, or this our perspective quite simply summed up. Also remember, your planet is overpopulated, so either you have to relocate to another world to some degree, you could terraform to parts of Moon, Mars, perhaps Venus not so easily, as it's very high in containing of certain gases like carbon dioxide that's not very praisable by your species, but there have been people of your world, or those that are currently on your world, some related to entities that have lived there in what you would call a past, so it will be possible to get it back to a pristine condition. perhaps with the help of those that originally inhabited it, or very much not on the plate right now in terms of where you currently are of species. So for example, you could also relocate underground, but then again, you will also have to rather create tunnels. Remember, your planet isn't entirely hollow, as some people suggest, but there are certainly cavern systems, so you could relocate to some degree, but there's not much effort being done except elites going down under, not Australia, they're right here underground, and not so much relocation of larger population, so therefore population control is likely your best scenario, especially in overpopulated areas such as Africa or India or indeed China, where you can see many of those viruses are also cropping up. And just because some of them are engineered doesn't mean that it's all by one group of people that are doing everything against the population or for the population or whatever the fuck. There are still energies in charge, and individuals, no matter how powerful they seem to be, have to adhere to energy. So even if there's such an outbreak, environmental disasters, etc., even if there are some hardware involved or engineering to some degree, from the greater scheme of things, still everything has to happen in accordance with energy that's present, whether it's war, conflict, or in this case, an epidemic, as they are calling such. Now, as we're aware, it's certainly a heated topic. We don't consider it too much of a big degree, considering some other upheavals you're carrying on your planet currently, but either way, energy is playing out. Is there any other particular question on this topic before we would hop on to something else?
Hey, Kalask, this was the main question or the main topic that I wanted to ask you about today. The only thing I'm still wondering about is, like, what do you predict will happen with the virus? I mean, do you expect it to, kill millions of people, or I mean, so far it's killed about 3,000. Like, how many people do you expect it to kill?
Well, we're having numbers, but we're still expecting it to infect many, many more people. Or your species could, for example, adapt to the virus, so it would become something like another, well, the flu, right? It would just become like another flu. This year I have corona again. It's so annoying, That could happen. One option. It depends how well your body would adapt. We would easily do so, or if something similar scenario would occur, we're not quite as familiar with your fragile forms, yours. We're obviously speaking through vessel right now, so there is a certain understanding. However, it's likely not at the top yet. It will likely infect many more, and it will likely get much bigger than it currently is in terms of how it affects your economy. Your economy could experience a further setback, but also more due to panic than anything else. Now, doesn't mean because it infects a lot of people have to die. Not necessarily. Again, if your species is capable of adapting, even though a lot of people would be infected, it wouldn't have much of a detrimental effect on your populace. But even if it would kill, and where you're standing, your individuals would be scared. But for a bigger scheme of things, it would be not too bad if you would lose a few tens or even hundreds of million people. Not that likely to happen currently. Likely there will be more of such events happening in terms of infections, and yes, also, well, perhaps through your springtime there could be the widest spread of your current environmental condition in terms of where it gets it, where it doesn't. Again, we can't give you a number exactly because it depends on your species, adapts to the virus, and again, we're just really your current time that you're currently on. Now, obviously, people are engineering a counter agent, right? However, there could also be the attempt to implement some further control by forcing people to get a certain vaccination, also put certain substances in your physical form that makes you easier susceptible to something else. There's a larger pool of options that could happen. What we see the greatest likelihood that many more people will get infected, but not necessarily that a lot would die from it compared to perhaps your other diseases here in your world, like the Spanish flu, for example, right? Not necessarily to such a large degree, but it is at least a possibility, comparatively. So we're comparing, giving you numbers, but compared to other diseases, not as bad. Very, very unlikely it would be as bad as the Black Plague, right? Not to that degree. Versus Ebola, possibly, yes. Again, we compare to the Spanish flu, but then again, not necessarily numbers, more in percentage of the population. It all depends how well your body will adapt to it. We don't see it getting stopped anytime soon, but there are years perhaps you can adapt to it, and then your bodies will have an easier time living with having corona, getting rid of it again, more comparable to the average flu. Also, if it does kill people, it will likely be the weak, so perhaps not that bad for your overall species. We would welcome it from our perspective. We are aware we have more of an emotional attachment to an individual member of your species, and we don't share in such a manner. However, overall, we are certain your species will survive this infection, even if the majority would be under the influence of this virus.
Okay, cool. So if anybody else has questions on this topic, you guys can speak now. If not, Kalas, you can go into your next topic.
If there are further inquiries, we are jumping on to the right here that numerous people in the world have brought forward in some instances towards us where the sad person, for example, most recently the idea of getting to a similar state that we are currently speaking through vessel. Now, we're aware there are numerous people in your world that are bringing through energies from various entities such as us, or even non-physical, or perhaps more fairy, or some even sick, they're communicating with the dead, so to speak, etc. Be aware, there is a small percentage of our energy that's coming through the vessel. The largest of our energy is not being funneled through the vessel, it's on the back burner, so to speak, or in reserve, right? It's hardly possible for a member of your species to hold most of our frequency. It's very straining, and even other members of birds like their are also very difficult to bring through a member of your species. Now, one simple physical option, as we're aware of some people having confusion, there seems to be different for every single individual, how they're getting into the state. Now, something physically very easy we can share, that due to legality, obviously you all have to travel to, for example, Netherlands, right? If you do so, or if you try this in your backyard, it's up to you, but the idea from a legality point, for the vessel's sake, all travel to Netherlands. Now, the idea, or of course the Amazonas region, where it's still implemented more naturally. Your ayahuasca or jage or those similar methods, now we recommend particularly this one. Now, if a person wants to get into this state, we'll suggest it's necessary for you to be healthy by all means, or to have a pleasant experience on your planet Earth in the human form, or whatever. Now, this does not have any effect on us to the same degree it has on you, the same way you can eat catnip without having the same effect as cats do. Now, no side hint here for kitty cats, but literally the idea of effect it has. And when you are under influence of, for example, such a concept that would produce what you're considering in your brain, that would likely get you to a state where it's much easier without necessarily getting into the complicated process that we are explaining, but literally just digesting physical substance, that you are in a state where you are open for what you are considering astral travel. Now, astral travel does not equate the process that you call mediumship or channeling, but it could easier get you in touch with beings such as us. We could have a direct communication that's much easier. Of course, again, in the state you would use our symbol. If you want to talk to somebody else, you would use their symbol, etc., but likely somebody will immediately contact you anyway. The key is to be open to that process when you're in it. Now, obviously, you can reach it through deep meditation, through exposing yourself to extreme conditions, extreme heat or cold, or shocking your body through fasting, etc., but those are strenuous long processes, and we're aware many beings in your spiritual planetary community are not very patient in terms, and they require more quicker solutions, and we're also aware they're open towards such what you're considering plant, object, matter, etc. So that would be one option to get into such a deeper state. But again, it would be very chaotic, would not be in control of it the way we are in control of the vessel right now. It would be largely confusing, very chaotic, and we're speaking here from our experience of communicating with the vessel while it was under the influence, so to speak. So perhaps not the perfect condition to bring through such a method of communication, but just to get in a state we have an easier time communicating with our nice selves, and therefore being more aware, yes, those things even exist, that's real, etc., and your conscious mind has an easier time accepting those ideas, and which then gives you the confidence to put yourself in such a similar state. But then again, our frequency is much too large to be put through such a human form. It would always be a large degree of filtering involved, including almost all identities yet ever spoken through vessel. It's always just a percentage. Anybody who gets different is likely not quite truthful. Nobody on your planet is 100% what you consider being a medium, the same way a radio transmitter would be 100% tuned to a certain frequency. There's always some white noise involved. So therefore, also be careful with anything we are sharing or anybody else is sharing. You also remember it gets filtered through the vessel, gets translated. You're currently listening to the vessel standing on stage, so to speak, translating a reptile sitting on stage, speaking its own reptilian language that none of you can understand. You're aware of our sentence, for example, or in general you wouldn't understand anything what we are sharing. So all you're getting is the vessel, and the vessel, of course, is not a radio transmitter, quite literally, even though it's trying to be. It's more a translator, a simultaneous translator that you're having in your speeches in your world when someone speaks a language that the audience doesn't understand. Just as a heads up, once again, on considering what currently is happening to begin with, and all of those other instances where anything of those paranormal phenomena are present. Now, any further questions on this one, fill some water in the vessel.
I guess nobody else has questions on this topic, but I'm first in the queue. Do you have any more opening statements you want to make, Kalask, or should I go ahead with my questions?
Go ahead.
Well, yeah, like I said, the main questions that I was prepared, that I was wanting to ask you today had to do with the coronavirus. So, like one other kind of somewhat random thing that I've been wondering about for the past couple years, are you familiar with the history of Oak Island on the east coast of Canada, which is suspected of like having buried treasure from the Freemasons?
Not quite, but if you're sharing some details as part of something we can touch upon.
Well, like basically, yeah, there's an island like on the east coast of Canada called Oak Island, and like there's like a TV show about these treasure hunters that are trying to find like, you know, buried treasure from the Freemasons, and this show's been going on for like 4 or 5 years, and they haven't found anything yet. It seems like kind of a stupid show to me, but I mean, I was just wondering if you knew the history, like, do you know if the Freemasons buried anything of interest there?
Well, your entire play seems like a stupid show to us sometimes, but no offense, there are your being. Your Freemasons did indeed bury up what you consider treasure on numerous islands surrounding your current continent, as well as others, or also in other secret societies, and we're not certain if there's something on this particular island currently or not. It could have been simply had removed from there and transported somewhere else. A lot of your ancient treasures, and many of you are now aware of one conspiracy or one storyline or another, might indeed have been there at somewhat you considering a point in time frame, right? But currently it's not, right? So linearly speaking, someone took it and removed it, and energetically speaking, you're on the wrong timeline.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, it seems like those guys are totally wasting their time. I mean, they've been digging on this one island for like 5 years and haven't found anything. But all right. Well, yeah, that's all I was really wondering about. So I guess since I have a lot of questions for Metax, I guess I'll end it there now, and we could go into the next person. Cool, Kalask. Probably next weekend I'll talk to you. I was hoping to do it a couple weeks ago, but I had bronchitis. I've been sick for like the past 3 weeks, which has like really been fucking with me a lot lately. But anyway, yeah, hopefully next weekend I'll be able to talk to you in a private session. So Yeah, goodbye for now. Strength and honor, and I'll talk to you later.
But health, the rhyme, next Harris back in the queue.
Tim, you're up next.
Oh, hello, Kalask.
Greetings. Yes.
Is there anything you want to say? Start up.
Repeat.
Is there anything you want to say to start up?
Not necessarily, at least not more than what we shared previously, our opening statement. So if there's something you are requiring in detail, or a general statement towards your generalities, speak up.
Okay, so I'll just talk about your opening statement about taking the ayahuasca and things of that nature. So you're saying taking these substances is better to contact you through these substances?
Well, compared to what? Again, as you shared, if you're meditating for a longer period of time, put yourself through extreme conditions, including life-threatening ideas. Of course, you could go parachute jumping, right? With or without the parachute is up to you. Or deep sea diving, any of those extreme ideas, right? Extreme cold, heat, fasting, etc. But then again, that could be very straining, and as you shared, many people you were a person willing or able to do so, so therefore an easier pushing a button form of accessing our frequency would be, for example, this. Not less very extreme experience, but perhaps it's easier for some people to digest a substance compared to going parachute jumping, right?
Right, yeah. I could do both, so I don't really mind.
Or you could combine both.
I thought about it, don't worry. Okay, so yeah, I do, like last time, so I was taking mushrooms in the bush, say, a few months ago. And so in that time, I was speaking to some of these, I could see these entities through the bush, which were like Lyran beings or extraterrestrial beings. You're saying like when I do the same thing, I can just focus on the Kalask instead of just letting whatever come through.
We're recommending, again, we're sharing from the vessel. We are not digesting a substance of such a nature, it would have the same effect, but from what we're aware of, communicating or attempt to communicate with the vessel under the influence, so to speak, ayahuasca is first preferable over your other substance of a similar nature, unless you dose them very high, right, over your so-called recommended dosage. We don't take a responsibility for your current experiences. For example, if you go parachute jumping without a parachute while being on ayahuasca, which would likely be very entertaining for us, perhaps not so much for you, we're certain. Yes, in general, the effect is similar. DMT is the key. Easy, because of the rhymes. The idea is your third eye is supposed to produce a substance like the one of the vessels currently while under the influence of us, so to speak. Kalask is perhaps the best track you can perhaps ingest ever. But then again, you can get to that state by bridge the gap with such substances, yes. And of course, your logical mind would have to interpret, right? It would have to interpret those particular experiences. And therefore, it's much easier when you're in meditative state compared to when you shock your body with such a substance out of it. But then again, to those that are impatient or incapable of getting themselves to larger forever because they're time constrained, whatever, this would be a faster option. Yes, when you're under the influence of such, for example, if you almost dose your mushrooms very highly, likely a similar effect, then yes, you can communicate with entities. Likely, those are non-physical. Of course, in many cases, you could also communicate to entities such as us that are indeed physically up here, but of course, you wouldn't materialize in your surroundings because you are on a certain substance, right? You would just be more aware of what's in your surroundings to begin with. You wouldn't make anything up and you wouldn't materialize anything. You would just become more aware of what's already there anyway. Which, then again, yes, it can include entities that have a physical form and project into your consciousness telepathically the way we are doing it right now through the vessel, yes.
So when you take those substances, you're less grounded?
That can easily happen, yes.
So that'd be my concern, especially connecting into your sort of energy while I was on those substances.
Yes, correct. However, if you're correct to us, indeed, it will be likely more grounding. once you're in connection with our frequency. But overall, it's not just the uncrowning process, but it's likely the biggest issue. Again, but the entirely with your whole spiritual community, you're all uncrowned most of the time anyway. It's just that when you're reaching out there, very often you're losing touch with the ground. Therefore, it's important to also anchor yourself. So don't try to get off the planet or anything. Be aware that your physical form that you're currently experiencing life through, right? As long as you're aware of that, you should not get completely off the handle. In general, whenever you're doing anything to be what you're considering spiritual, not physical, you're communicating entities, you need to make sure you're staying grounded in all processes, no matter how you're getting into the state.
Yeah, so when I take ayahuasca or smoke that dimethyltryptamine, I find the experience is very intense, and it's very not hard to process, but there's a lot of information coming through my head. And so say like the last ayahuasca a couple of months ago, I perceived other multi-dimensional lives and things of that nature, but it's very hard to bring back a lot of quantified information. Do you have any tips for that?
Yes, again, grounding. The reason you're not taking anything back, but you're aware of what's going on out there, is because your third eye is wide open, but you're ungrounded, right? Whenever you're perceiving anything beyond the point physically, it's always your third eye being very widely open. The key of bringing things back, for example, like we are doing with the vessel right now, because we're literally speaking a verbally audible, understandable language of your own culture, your own planetary body, through a physical form of a human being. We're indeed grounding energy through this very process. Or when you directly communicate with the vessel, it's its own method of grounding. Otherwise, it would likely just be in contact with us and no longer be on Earth. That's not the key, because then you get ultimately sick, because again, what you're using, you're losing. It includes your physical capability of interacting with your surroundings. So for example, of course, when you're working out, etc., that helps with grounding, or obviously not necessarily when you're an influence of such a substance. Obviously, for what we're experiencing, considering the vessel don't experience, when you're in another individual, you're in presence of your own species, preferable, that they're physically present, they can likely ground you much easier, so you're not communicating only with entities out here, but also verbally are capable, at least capable, you have the option of communicating with another entity in your own surrounding of your own species. Of course, you can also communicate with animals, plants, etc., but then again, you would also get more an energetic communicative process, and when you're still verbalizing your ideas and concepts, it's likely much more grounding, because you're reminding yourself constantly that you're still here as monkey on Earth.
Okay, thanks for that. Also, I want to talk about these metals they're finding called Oromachala. Could you explain where this metal comes from?
Not quite, unless you could exemplify more clearly what exactly you're referring to.
Well, they refer this metal Oromachala as coming from Atlantis, but I get the feeling that this metal is labeled as Oromachala, but it's coming from many different places, or they're naming many different metals or alloys Oromachala. Is that correct?
Well, we're aware of what term you're using there at all. However, of course, there are numerous metals on your word that are currently what you're considering undiscovered, or alloys that consist of different metals that have been forged in other worlds. And yes, there are the same elements on other worlds, but other worlds produce those elements in different combinations. Therefore, you have different alloys, and therefore also some of the elements that were brought to your planet as alloys, or just the process of creating metal, especially iron in the first place, does not come from your planet. It was taught to your people, so therefore also some original constructions on your planet were not constructed by your own kind, but by visitors. So indeed, there could be some alloys that are still left, or different combinations of different metallic structure, like your deeply common erosion that sank together with the Atlantean continent. So it depends correctly where they are discovering what.
So is that why the metals that they're finding in these alloys seem to not come from Earth, because they've been brought from other places to Atlantis?
Yes, pretty much all alloys on your planet originally were brought there. What consisted already on your planet was obviously iron, but iron was not manufactured, and your ancestors were taught to manufacture use iron. And then from there on, it was built upon. This alloys were created in the aftermath after a colony was founded there.
Okay, and my last question, I'll just ask about a dream I had the other night, and I just want you to clarify what was going on. I was in like a field down the road, and I was building some sort of object, and next minute I look up and there was some sort of UFO in the sky. Dude, what was I doing in there?
This was a possible vision, right? You could of course consider the past memory, but or memory of the future. What you perhaps consider a first contact scenario, not necessarily the idea of shaking somebody's hand, but yet this was indeed of an entity piloting a craft. So not just an area phenomenon, but indeed a craft you were aware of in this possible option that could be your reality. You were just testing your availability to certain past experiences that are currently happening on another timeline.
So what, I was building a device to try and communicate with him?
Well, depends what you're considering building. Creating, yes.
Creating, yeah, that'd be a better world.
Not the idea you're putting together certain electrical equipment, etc., but more the idea you're getting yourself in a state, you're creating yourself in a sense that you become the device originally. Everything else would be a metaphor in this case.
Oh, is that why I was becoming like a satellite dish, building like a receiver?
That would be another metaphor, yes.
And that's why I was perceiving it. Then when I looked into the mountain was all hollow, as if someone built the mountain out of wood or something like that. That confused me a little.
There are some things we cannot share about this currently, due to your own personal, your own word, also in the Reptilian user. Yes, a lot of your mountains are.
So was that the actual mountain I'm perceiving, or I know you say you can't share it, but all of a sudden I start seeing the mountain as if it was man-made and not really a mountain.
You're onto something, yes? Very peculiar topic. Intriguing tonight, sir. There is much more we can share about this. There is likely something come out in the future on your current timeline, but it also greatly depends on your species taking the past that we previously explained or not.
Okay, all right. So you just don't want to tell me any more about it. Well, what's a clue? Why do you keep laughing at me? What's the best path I can do? Look down at this more.
Again, when you're learning to be more remote viewing, right? You can perhaps view in one of those mountains. Again,
okay.
Your ayahuasca will also help you with that, for example. Again, it's the strongest that we are currently aware of in your planet, or of course, again, you could get those states more naturally. But it's perhaps, nonsense. It's easier for you to just ingest a substance. We don't see you capable of getting to a state with enough patience to do it otherwise. So therefore, for you personally, perhaps the best idea, and yes, this is a very hot topic. A lot of your planet is under tunnel, and yes, a lot of it is hollow. Your planet is not what you are thinking.
Oh, okay, it's pretty deep. Okay, so take some substances and remote view of them. That's what you're saying.
That's likely your current state, the best option. We also told the vessel certain ideas, and also told the vessel not to share any of that, what it discovered in the process. Some things are currently better left untouched.
Okay, well, I'll leave it for now. I appreciate your help, and I'll let someone else talk to you.
Much knowledge.
All right, Channeling.KALASK.
I think this might have been the end of the queue for Kalask. Was there anyone else? I think this might conclude our time.
Very quickly, very acceptable. So, we're assuming you're then asking for us to correct it again.
Yes, please.
Anti-right direction, one strengths, honor, a little bit corona, a little bit of war, and much adventure to you. Task!
Greetings, Metax.
Greetings, Kristen. I hope I'm audible. I have to fill some water and notes, so if anybody has any specific direction they want me to make a statement upon, I can bring it up while I'm hydrating.
Hello, Metax. Vinetta would like to use her time on having either you or Sihar doing an opening statement if there's something that you or Sihar would like to speak about in general. So can you sense if Sihar, for instance, would like that?
I can certainly connect to you if connect you to her, and then you can ask her directly. I don't necessarily have anything in particular to share right now, but it really depends if you would prefer to communicate with me or her. It's entirely up to you.
Okay, well, I would very much love to speak to Sihar then. Thank you.
One moment.
Greetings.
Greetings, Sihar. It's very nice to hear your voice again.
It's not quite my voice, it's the voice of this strange person I was speaking to. I understand the idea you're sharing, however, and I appreciate the sentiment. It's nice to hear of your voices as well, however. Let me perhaps start with the idea that yes, I am sharing ideas to this person and I'm using its vocal cord. I hope I'm understandable while I'm doing so. However, why would still sound somewhat different when I would speak directly? It's just how it's translated to this person. And I'm doing my best to use the vocal cord that sounds as much as me, but to me it still sounds strange. Like your people in your world, perhaps, when you for the first time hear your own recorded voice that you're not used to. It's maybe a little bit like that, but tenfold. It's still a complicated process, not necessarily an idea for me to do so, but an idea to explain how it works. And if I would speak to somebody else, it would likely sound somewhat different, but you would still feel my energy and you would tells me. I also wouldn't want to over strain the capability of this person to bring ideas through the daily person in terms of being a clear communicator. As we are aware, the more there's analytics of the process, the less it functions from the person. So right now I'm making explanations, but if the person, you, David, any individual otherwise in your species would be more inquisitive, nothing wrong with being inquisitive and scientific analytics, however, if there would be more questioning, second guessing how it works, then like the connection would falter. That's a problem that exists in your scientific world you need to overcome if you want to make process further, and if your mental capacities are supposed to catch up with your technological advancement, what is necessary to close the gap in your so-called paranormal phenomena is that you are understanding that your analytics that you're currently aware of in your experimental physics is not fully capable of comprehending those phenomena, because once you're getting in a state of analytics, you're closing your third eye, and subsequently, if you want to analyze what you're doing that needs the functionality of the third eye, no longer can do it. In other words, you cannot see what you're doing because you cannot do it anymore, because you're falling out of the state. Now, when you're in this state, however, you cannot analyze it because you're not on your analytical part of your brain. There's the division between the right and the left side of your brain that makes it somewhat complicated, but that's the key for your species to get energetically the state where you're evolving to your next dimensionality. Are you following me? Or have I lost you?
No, I'm following you. I'm following you, Sihar.
Very well.
Do you have any other intro statement you would like to give, or was this your intro statement?
It's a funny concept, an intro statement. I was sharing what I'm currently find to be the most important topic at hand. If you want to call it a statement of introduction, then so be it.
Yes, okay, but what I meant was, do you have anything else that
Yes, I understand. We can share something more clearly of you particularly if that's what you're interested in, but in general, that's what I wanted to share at the moment.
Okay, well, excellent. Then I will ask you my questions. First of all, how do you feel like my channeling of you is going? Are you seeing any progress?
There's no time, so therefore progress resolution. The most general statement I can possibly make. Yes. The simpler version is yes, you're certainly making strides, as you calling such. Very rare. And then there was also a statement by those reptilian beings earlier in terms of some functionalities. I wasn't necessarily commenting on this side of being positive or negative, but in general, what I shared just in my opening statement also applies to your condition that you're achieving, more or less. Again, if you're more in the process of allowing than analyzing, or I understand you need to have some feedback from me through David instead, so you have something like an idea of checks and balances. However, the more you're willing to just let come through whatever there is and not so much wonder if it is getting better or worse, the better it ironically gets.
Okay, so I will ask no more about that then.
You can certainly ask me directly, but the idea is not so much what you verbalize, but especially if you keep asking yourself.
Okay. And then I have tried to meet up with you in my conscious astral projections, but I have not succeeded so far. So I wanted to hear, would you like to meet me in an astral projection, or do you think that you would scare me if we met?
I doubt that there would be fear in a purely astral connection. Physically, very likely, because your physical brain is not fully capable of understanding the reality of such a contact. However, energetically, yes, that's certainly, from my perspective, available. It just depends if your own higher self or your subconscious mind is available.
Okay. And then in our first interaction, you mentioned that you might do a flyby someday in your spaceship and make it visible for me. And I've been looking at the night sky every night since then, but I haven't seen anything yet. So am I looking in the wrong direction, or have you just been too busy to have time for that kind of shenanigans?
Well, as you're aware, there's no time at all, so therefore it's not the idea of me having a schedule, it's more the idea of the Evangelion planet is sustainable for such a frequency, which currently is unlikely, so therefore the option still stands. It just depends what frequency you or the rest of your population is at. It's not so much the idea you have to wait for a certain point in your so-called time. Remember, it's about frequency, so it depends when you and your planet is at the right state. No worries, no hurries. Everything happens in divine time, space, reality.
Okay, excellent. I will just ask everybody else then to meditate before I go to bed, and then we will have that sorted in no time. Great. Do you have any suggestions for me regarding my physical issues around my tailbone?
The crowning idea obviously would be a great concept. However, it's also your solar plexus to some degree, your sense of identity in the world. Also, of course, the sacred, the playfulness, the ease that many in your world are struggling with, especially currently. There's a certain nervousness about you. You're that nervous. Why are you so nervous? Relax.
Yes. Yes, okay.
Open the heart can also certainly help when you wish to communicate with me, of course.
Yes. And so I'm wondering, which question would you like the most of all to be asked by me?
My greatest request would be direct communication, so not necessarily a question from your part, but perhaps what our connection is. That my answer to that would likely be energetically, not something I would share verbally, something I prefer to show you.
Okay, and do you mean like show me when I'm able to channel you, or show me now, or in an astral projection, or what?
Likely an astral projection, but of course that also could lead to channeling.
Oh, that sounds awesome. I am looking forward to that. Yeah.
I certainly like that as well. Remember, relax. No worries, no hurries. Relax. Calm down. That's the easiest way to process my frequency.
Yes, I will have to channel my inner cat spa.
Exactly.
Okay, so is there any question that you would like to ask me?
I already asked why you're so nervous, so more the idea than what is the greatest trust issue or challenge or interest that you're currently working with?
Do you mean in relation to
Me.
Okay, so what my greatest what was? Sorry, I forgot.
Trusting. Are you trusting me, the process of connectivity, or your own abilities in terms of what you're desiring to accomplish? Where exactly do you think you are at?
I certainly trust you, and I also pretty much trust my ability to channel you. I think my general nervousness comes from my childhood, where I had a father who would very, very easily get angry at me if I did the wrong things or said the wrong things or didn't say the right things and so on. So especially in my childhood, I was extremely nervous and was being bullied and was afraid of just everybody. And it has actually gotten much, much better now. So yeah, so I think, but it appears there's still a bit of nervousness lingering of like people getting angry at me or yelling at me in particular. So I think that is why I'm still somewhat nervous.
Yes, I understand. However, we're building upon that a certain self-judgment where you're doing what you're projecting other people to do or expecting them to do, but you're doing it to yourself. I would suggest that's likely where you're hindering your abilities that you otherwise had. You're judging certain aspects of yourself. Also,
Yes.
remember there is no right or wrong words in such a concept. It's still an internalized version of yourself that you don't need to identify with some as you want to.
I didn't hear the last part. Could you repeat?
You are identifying with a version of yourself that does things wrong or right or has concepts of such, but you don't have to identify with that version. You can if you will, but it's just one version, right?
Yeah, I would rather like to connect to the cat version of me who didn't care so much. And yes. Okay. And then I would also like to ask you, do the fifth and sixth dimensions, do they include the same atoms that we have here in 3D and 4D?
Basically, yes. Just less dense.
Okay. And so when humanity transitions into the fifth dimension, what will happen to all our things like our cars and clothes and so on? Will they stay in 3D or will we take them with us if we transition into 5D?
Your so-called transitioning process is not maybe likely. It's difficult to explain in your language. It's everything would still be there, but a different version of it. You might not even realize it. There wouldn't be sudden shifts and you would be somewhere else unless you decide to exit your physical body and then enter the fifth dimensionality. The same way you dream, you still dream of physical object, even though when you get back from the dream, you realize it was so-called a dream. But in reality, it's just as real.
Aha, okay.
So you might dream of a car in your dream, and it's just as real as a car in your third dimensionality. It's just you currently identify those things as dreams, but you are in different dimensionalities to them, and you are living in those different dimensionalities when your physical form on Earth is currently dreaming. But in your dream, they're very real.
But is it not so that in my dreams I am the only real person? Everybody else and all other objects are like made up, so nobody else except from me experiences that reality.
Basically, just like your physical dimensionality as well, yes.
But I mean, here in my physical reality, the people that I meet physically will also experience the things that I do. If, for instance, if I don't know, if I bite somebody, they will also feel it in their reality. They wouldn't if I was dreaming, right?
They would. The version of them that's in your dream would. Just like the version of them that's in your third dimensional, they do.
But when I then stop that dream, would those people still exist?
Of course. Everything you perceive exists, otherwise you couldn't perceive it. Just your version of them only exists from your perception, but so does it in the physical dimensionality. Your mailman might exist without your thinking, but your understanding of the mailman and your perception of him exists solely in you.
Okay, that pretty much blows my mind.
That's the key. The more it gets blown, the easier it is to open it up.
Yes, okay. Do you have any final thing you would like to say to me?
Yes, if you're still judging certain aspects of yourself from your childhood, that also leads to you being ungrounded due to your inability or perceived inability to identify with your current physical identity. So if you would let go of that judgment, it would help you greatly.
Okay, so I should kind of make, I don't know how to say it, kind of forgive my past or make peace with my past, or what would you
Your
suggest?
past is a projection from the present. So it's not so much you need to forgive the past, it's more like in your present right now, you identify with all of the aspects that make you you. Your physical identity. If you're throwing anchors to the past, you're recreating it.
Okay, so I should just
You
identify
should
with a better childhood.
just allow yourself to be who you are right now without the fear that you're contributing or attributing to another version of you that is not necessarily valid in your current reality.
Okay, thank you so much for all your words of wisdom and for your wonderful energy, and I really look forward to channeling you directly and interacting more with you, Sihar.
Much love to you. Self-love.
Much love to you. And if anybody else would like to speak to Sihar, now they would have the chance. Goodbye, Sihar.
Bye.
Did anyone else have questions for Sihar?
Assume in this case I can connect back to Metax and he can take care of the physical form. Much love to all of you. Thank you, Chris, for facilitation. And of course, until another interaction.